I am not a politician. I am the people. And there is no greater testament to that fact than the struggles I have endured alongside you to preserve our rights and freedoms. And so now it is the time to exercise your right to choose.
Hello everybody, it is Tuesday, June 12th, approximately 5:15 a.m. We are at the 53rd Division on Eglinton Avenue East, and I am going to turn myself in.
What's going on, everybody? So I spent almost 21 hours in jail. I was subjected to some cruel and unusual punishment, but I'm in good spirits. Why? Because I know I'm gonna beat those charges. I'm out. They didn't stop me. They didn't slow me down.
In this case, I got charged, and this is the third time I've got charged for this exact same crime, uttering threats. And in every single instance, the supposed threat that I allegedly uttered was on a phone call that was not recorded, and the only evidence of the supposed threat is the person's good word.
David Menzies for Rebel News here in Toronto. We just watched the People debate as it was billed. It was with 8 candidates, the kind of candidates that the mainstream media run debates are never going to invite on stage.
They want to control you. I'm out there at 3 in the mornings hammering my own signs in. People say, why? Because a leader works on the front lines. A leader doesn't worry about getting his hands dirty. And most importantly, a leader would never ask somebody to do something that they wouldn't do themselves.
It was thrilling, and we'll get to what Chris had to say during the debate, but the reason du jour we really want an interview with you, Chris, is what happened on Monday. You had to turn yourself into police again.
Hello everybody, it is Tuesday, June 12th, approximately 5:15 a.m. We are at the 53rd Division on Eglinton Avenue East, and I am going to turn myself in as requested, and I'll message you guys when I get out. Don't forget, guys, I'm not doing this for nothing. I'm doing this for a reason. So don't make it be for nothing. Get out there, June 26th, vote number 82, Chris Sokocha from there.
What was that all about?
Well, the 27th arrest and the 73rd charge, and I still have 0 convictions. So what does that tell you? The average conviction rate in Canada is 62%. The acquittal rate is 39%, with 1% left over for mistrials, hung juries, etc. So how does somebody be charged 72 times and have 0 convictions? Either that means I'm the luckiest man in the entire world, tenfold over, or it means I'm being illegally targeted by the government. Because every single time I'm arrested, the charges don't stick. Why don't the charges stick? Because I've never actually committed any crimes. So why do they keep arresting me? Because every time they arrest me, they try to discredit me. Every time they arrest me, they torture me and try to dishearten me. Every time they arrest me, they think it's going to slow me down or break my will to stop fighting. But all they do is strengthen my resolve each and every time. All they do is increase my base of support each and every time, and all they do is embolden me and empower me each and every time.
Chris, what are the nature of these charges? I mean, you've gone 72-0, as you said. Monday was the 73rd charge, but what are they actually charging you with?
In this case, I got charged, and this is the third time I've got charged for this exact same crime, uttering threats. And in every single instance, the supposed threat that I allegedly uttered was on a phone call that was not recorded, and the only evidence of the supposed threat is the person's good word.
Who is this person you're threatening, allegedly, and what are the nature of the threats?
But the real nature is, it's of me exposing corruption, as I always do. And the man behind this is the CEO of the Daily Bread Food Bank, the same Daily Bread Food Bank that was supposed to be hosting this debate that happened tonight. They were supposed to be holding a part 2 of the mayoral candidate debate, the official debate that they held, because he called me and said that the biggest criticism that they got was the candidates they chose and how they chose them. So they wanted to do another debate and give more candidates the chance to be heard. So after more than a week of actually putting everything together, putting him in touch with our moderator that we had tonight, and actually inviting all the other candidates, all of a sudden they got back to me and said, oh, our board of directors decided we're not going to do the debate. So I sent him a message saying, I'm going to expose you for corruption. Thanks for being a piece of
And Chris, are these allegations, or do you actually have proof?
I have proof, and I'm talking about this because this is the evidence that he gave to the police. So he gave him evidence where I literally didn't threaten him. In fact, I said, I'm going to expose you for corruption. So not only is that contrary evidence to a threat, it also is him providing motive of why he would lie about the death threat, because he doesn't want me to expose him.
What's going on, everybody? So I spent almost 21 hours in jail. I was subjected to some cruel and unusual punishment, but I'm in good spirits. Why? Because I know I'm going to beat those charges. I'm out. They didn't stop me. They didn't slow me down. And they were smart enough to put my video on CP24 to let all you know that all you have to do to save yourselves, save your family, is vote for me. They literally... The mainstream media couldn't even deny it.
He also didn't take into account the fact when I make important phone calls, especially during a political campaign, I don't do it alone. I was standing there with my campaign manager and one of my head volunteers, and they were listening in on the phone call. It was on speakerphone. So we have 3 witnesses that know that this gentleman was lying. So that's why I was released. And first of all, if somebody makes a threat, if somebody makes an allegation of a threat, if I just call the police right now and say, David Menzies just threatened to kill me, do you think they're going to come and arrest you? Answer?
Yes.
No, they wouldn't.
I'm okay.
They wouldn't. And if they did, because they really wanted you, they would give you what's called a promise to appear. You would go in the thing, you would get a slip, and you'd get out, and you'd have to go to court.
Yes.
With me, even though I have no other charges and I have no criminal record, and the threat was so light that they had absolutely no evidence, I needed to turn myself in and I needed to go for bail. So they transferred me from 5 o'clock in the morning to another cell at 11 o'clock. I got bail by 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and then instead of letting me out, they told me, sorry, we're not letting anyone out right now. And they kept me in jail another 9 hours after I was supposed to be released. And to make it even worse, they put a mentally ill man beside me who did nothing but sing on the top of his lungs as off-key as possible for 9 hours straight. Everything from 50 Cent to Celine Dion.
I'd say that's a form of torture, Chris.
It was 100% torture. And at first I thought this was ridiculous, but after hours of it, when you're locked in a cage like an animal and you're simply trying to have your own peace, it was literally a very effective means of torture, and I don't think it was an accident.
You know, doesn't that say something about the justice system right now, Chris? The fact that we have basically a catch and release program for violent offenders with weapons. They're already out on bail and they're back out on the street. I'm sure it's very disheartening for members of law enforcement. And yet for you, as you're saying, trumped up charges of an alleged threat, you're treated that way. It's baffling. But what is the status of charge number 73?
Well, that's this charge, and the case they had against me was so weak that they had to release me on bail to myself. I didn't even need a bail surety. Wow. I didn't need to put up any money, and the only condition is not to talk to the gentleman that I allegedly threatened. That's how ridiculous their case is. I want to stress this again. Anybody else would not even have been arrested, let alone arrested, thrown in jail for almost 24 hours before being released. It's absolutely ludicrous. And the moment I got out of jail, surprise, I was given even more charges in the mail. Why were these charges given? Because I opened an investigation almost 3 weeks ago against the York Region Police, who on video committed both obstruction of justice and electoral interference, followed by a blatant assault with a weapon on video to my back when I had my back turned.
Hey, that's assault! That's assault!
So I went to the OIPIRD and I started an official investigation. They looked at the evidence, and the official investigation was underway from the main investigator from the OIPIRD. Guess what they did? In order to try to circumvent the investigation, because an investigation can't happen if there's an alleged offense, they came and they sent me a trespassing charge in the mail after the fact to try to stop the investigation in its tracks, because these officers both knew that they broke laws that can not only have them lose their job, but even go to jail. So this is corruption at the highest level, and I'm going to expose it, and I'm going to use the professional standards and the OIPIRD to investigate the police fully in this matter. And we're going to prove that this trespass charge was created after the fact and created for 2 purposes: in retaliation for the investigation and to try to circumvent an investigation.
Very quickly, let's just wrap up what happened on the stage tonight. I'm kind of like the umpire behind home plate. I calls them as I sees them. So I think based on the applause-o-meter, if we had one, you were the clear-cut winner. And I think the most rousing standing ovation you got was your position on Sogi.
And all these different pronouns. And they make your children as young as 4 play games where they choose their gender and choose their pronoun. And now they have laws in place that if they can convince your little son Jack that he wants to be called Jill, they'll call him her, they'll call him Jill, and they will not inform you, they will not ask for your consent. And then 6 months later, when Jill puts on a dress at your house and you're all concerned, CPS is going to be knocking at your door, wondering why you're not affirming your child's gender. This is about sexualizing children, confusing children, perverting children, so the state can become the #1 influence in their life over the parents, and parents need to stand up to this vehemently and call out these child groomers for what they are, and we need to enforce the laws that are already on the books. There is 171.1 and 171.2 against child exploitation. These are laws on the books, and they need to be enforced.
I think there is a pent-up disgust for what's happening in our schools.
It's very true, and it's because they cross the line. They're coming for the children. Yeah. They want to pretend like this is all about LGBT. No, we don't care. We like the LGBT community. You want to have trans people doing drag queen shows? Do it every week. For adults. The moment you want to involve children in LGBT, aka sexualization and all that stuff, that's wrong. A child needs to be a child. A child does not need to be indoctrinated with sexual orientation and gender identity when they're 4 years old, asking them if they're a boy or girl or non-binary. We do not need to confuse and pervert and sexualize our children. And we actually have laws on the books right now. Look it up. 171.1, 171.2 against sexual exploitation of children, and everything that they're doing with Soji, with drag queens not even coming to read stories. Drag queens are now being invited to schools to actually perform for the children. Strip off their clothes, dance provocatively, and wearing clothes designed not to hold in male genitalia. So you get a lot of so-called wardrobe malfunctions, if you know what I mean. Jennifer McAlvey, our deputy mayor, was the one who sponsored with our municipal tax dollars the drag queen performance at York Mills Collegiate, where I organized the protest with Josh Alexander and children from the school and their parents. And what do we have? The entire school walk out. Over 1,000 people show up. Why? Because once again, they cross the line. They're coming for the children. Leave the kids alone.
There you go. Well, Chris, thank you so much for your time. And there you go, Chris Guy. We're in the stretch run for Mayor of Toronto. Law enforcement is hot on his heels, as always, it seems, for reasons that are baffling, quite frankly. We'll see how this turns out in the days ahead. For Rebel News, I'm David the Menzoid Menzies. Folks, I know you can't on Rebel News to bring you the other side of the story, and sure enough, that's why we were at the People debate to listen to candidates that are, well, quite frankly, shunned by the mainstream media and the establishment. Totally shameful, but you know what? We need your help. If you can go to rebelfieldreports.com, that's rebelfieldreports.com, and if you're able to kindly make a donation, that would be greatly appreciated.